Down in London where I was raised, down where I got my learning, I fell in love with a pretty little girl. Her name was Barbary Ellen.
Well, welcome everyone. Our latest guest in this Ralph Vaughan Williams Society interview series is Julian Onderdonk. Julian is Professor of Music Theory, History and Composition at Westchester University in Pennsylvania. He's also the co-editor with Ceri Owen of the new study of Vaughan Williams's life and work from Cambridge University Press, Vaughan Williams in Context, a host of writers on Vaughan Williams included there. Well, welcome, Julian. Tell me, first of all, about the origins of this book. I wonder if there was a particular need that was perceived.
Well, Cambridge has a series in Context, and it's not just in music. There is a Britten volume, there's a Mahler volume, Strauss, I think, Stravinsky, and they're continuing on. But there's also, in context for non-music subjects, literary. I think there's a Skelton in Context. I'm not sure. So, I mean, frankly, it's a commercial venture on Cambridge's part. Increasingly, publishers are wanting to sell books through series on the assumption that they'll sell more than one.
Yeah,
Um,
but at the same time, Julian, you said yes to the proposition, and you must have believed that there was something that was worth putting out there.
Well, absolutely. There's increasingly much to be said about Vaughan Williams, especially as we move away from the kind of set perception of him as a true blue Englishman and nothing else, of the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. Not to and further, not to mention, of course, the critical um, the critical frowning upon him that was a consequence of the rise of high modernism in the 50s after World War II, and the discrediting of nationalism as a general rule, as a consequence of Hitler and Nazism. Yeah, there's been a large scale reassessment of Vaughan Williams, and there's still more to be said, and I can discuss the various stages of that if you'd like. What I
Yeah.
believe to be the stages.
Well, I mean, it begs the question, how do you go about selecting this whole range of contributors? Do you put a sort of round robin email out there and say, anybody interested, or how does it work?
No, specific invitations. Ceri Owen and I were brought together to do the editing, and we, had a long brainstorming session, or should I say sessions, in which we plotted out the kinds of things that we thought Vaughan Williams scholarship could go or should go, taking stock of where it currently is. And here we're thinking especially of the Cambridge Companion to Vaughan Williams, edited by Alain Frogley and Aidan Thompson, which did much to rehabilitate him, I think. And of course Frogley's earlier book, Vaughan Williams Studies, and there have been other academic works. But if basically what those first two volumes, especially the second one, did was to rehabilitate Vaughan Williams as a modernist, as somebody who, was not just a dyed in the wool conservative, and the proof is in his politics, of being a progressive and socialist, tinged activist, and in his music, you're using, what, octatonic scales and modernist devices, and that's all very good and well, and incidentally, there have been, of course, other incidental essays, scholarly essays, books that have promoted this vision as well. But basically, what we felt was lacking was perhaps an overemphasis on Vaughan Williams as a modernist in the old school sense, of it having to do with, progressive musical features, or simply progressive politics, because there's a new kind of thinking about what the modern is, and the modern is not just modernist. It is also the world we live in, and it isn't just about style or politics, although politics naturally is going to move into the realm of the social, but precisely that, the social, institutions, educational frameworks, um, aesthetics, ideas that were modern in their way, technology. Oh my goodness, technology. Um, you know, recordings, a radio. These things have been typically ignored by musicologists who have been focused basically on style for centuries.
Well, there's
So,
Julian, there's some fairly well trodden subject areas like Vaughan Williams and landscape, Vaughan Williams and war, Vaughan Williams and London. What you're saying is there are new things to be said about each of these familiar areas.
I think so, and I like to think that many of the essays in the book do go to those places, which isn't to say that the book doesn't also the essays in the book don't also serve as a summary of things that have been said, and the essays differ in the respect of how much is new, or how much is tweaked, and how much is just a apt, pithy summary of some of the writing that's been done. You have to realize that one of the things about the In Context series, and one of the most difficult things about it, well, I like to think one of the opportunities that it offers is the short length of the essays. 3,000 words is not a lot of space to say a lot in, unless you are summarizing deftly and knowledgeably broad aspects of the literature in order to further to make a new point, or to further a point. And that's something that Ceri and I worked very hard to do with our authors, was to emphasize, let's put a 9,000 word article into a 3,000 word article. Not that we always succeeded, but that was the idea. Was I think the reach of the best of these is for a larger canvas, but I like to think that the shorter canvas has not scrimped on any analysis.
Chapter on Vaughan Williams and women from Erica Siegel. I mean, much has been revealed about Vaughan Williams's relationships with particular women in recent years. What one's wondering here is, what is there of real significance that can be said about those relationships, rather than perhaps it being slightly voyeuristic, if one can put it like that?
Right. Well, it's a very tricky subject. And there has been things written about it. I don't know if we've had both the pros and the cons presented quite in the way that Erica does. Maybe I'm wrong about that. But and of course there is more to be said. This I don't know. I feel that it furthered the discussion to this point. But is there more to be said about that? Yes. Is there more to be said about landscape? Yes. Is there more to be said about London? Yes. But that's of course always the case with scholarship. You just hope that it isn't just a complete retread, and I like to think none of the items in the book are.
Yeah, I was intrigued by the section on Vaughan Williams' music's reception in Europe. Uh, Tell me about that. Was it more extensive than we might think, and has it sort of regressed in more recent days?
Regressed meaning there's less.
There are fewer performances now than there were at one stage.
Well, I think that's a room for further research. I do think that Aidan Thompson revealed a lot of things we didn't know about his reception in between the wars. And as he himself points out, it's just scratching the surface and a point of beginning. But it was rather interesting to read about these, and to realize that someone other than a avant-garde radical was being accepted for just that, and that there was much, many critics who didn't care for the extremism of the Schoenberg school. Uh, so I think that's an important thing, and it's a part of well, in a way, what I was saying earlier of arguing first that Vaughan Williams is not Schoenberg, and let's make that clear, and nor would he ever want to be, nor is he, Arthur Sullivan, who's been, living 30 years past 1900 or something, if Sullivan were to continue his style, I mean, he's somewhere in between, and for many, his music was cutting edge, and I'm not just talking about Job and the Fourth Symphony either. In fact, there's a recent book by Nigel Simeone on Adrian Bolt and Vaughan Williams, and there's a lot of quotes from the foreign press in that book about his music being difficult, challenging to play, and difficult to listen to. So clearly, he was not the fuddy-duddy that he was portrayed to be later on after his death.
Well,
But again,
amen to that. Okay,
yes.
you've made a virtue out of these being short chapters, but would you, I mean, maybe it's unfair of me to ask, but is there any one of these chapters which you think, there's a book in this?
Well, I hesitate to comment on that. I think there are some potential books, but I really couldn't put my finger on which ones.
And you're not putting your hand up to be the next biographer of Vaughan Williams, Julian, with all this extra knowledge that you've actually acquired now. It's a daunting task for anybody, is it not?
Well, indeed, and I do think Eric Saylor's recent biography is awfully good and covers a lot of detail, a lot of new information, of course, which the letters have been just wonderful in bringing us to realize the specifics of many
And
situations.
Hugh Cobb, of course, is represented in this new volume,
Right.
who, of course, was the person that brought together all these letters into an edition. Well, look, Julian,
And Hugh also, of course, started the website.
yeah. Julian, it's a great pleasure to speak to you. I do hope this book is a huge success. I'm sure it deserves to be so. Let's just reassure people, the general reader about music and Vaughan Williams needn't feel they should be intimidated by this, a collection of essays, as it were, by a lot of academics.
Well, I hope so. The Cambridge pitches the book as being for general readers, and even A-level students. That kind of but it's specialized general reader, I suppose. I believe very strongly in clear, straightforward prose, and certainly endeavor to write so myself. Whether I succeed or not, I don't know. I do believe as editors, Ceri and I sought to do something similar with all the author's pieces, and editing is, as I'm sure you and many people watching this know, not always a thankful task, and it can be there could be bumps in the road, but that, of course, is always to the good. And so I certainly there's a lot of new information here, but hopefully presented in a way that will be accessible to the general reader, and of course with footnotes for further reading.
Well,
I'm
looking forward to. Well, I'm looking forward to delving deeper and deeper into the detail of this book. Julian, thanks very much indeed for your time.
Thank you.
Since you have gained my heart, said she, and stolen away my liberty, pray grant to me your name, sir, pray grant to me your name, sir. To church then this young couple went,